This 2D platformer, looking like a game from the bygone era of 1990s console gaming, with melodious music to match, combines Diablo loot grinding, Castlevania's combat, and Minecraft's mining and building elements to create gaming ecstasy. But like any climax, I fear for its sustainability, as its apparent emphasis on custom building puts it needlessly in direct competition with Minecraft. Does Terraria do custom building better than Minecraft? No, not really. Of course, mining in a 2D platformer lets your eyes wander and plan ahead to other things on screen, rather than staring at dirt for the majority of time in Minecraft. But it's a scarce type of person who would prefer to look at a sectional drawing of a finished building rather than a perspective. But building credentials shouldn't really be the point. I'm rather loath to make this comparison because Minecraft and Terraria are such different games. Terraria shares more essentials with classic Castlevania platformers than it does with Minecraft. At least that's how I played it. Perhaps, having studied architecture forever, the idea of building recreationally has become revolting to me. So I concentrated on the combat and the loot. Yes, it's also got the procedurally generated game world, a similar inventory and crafting system, day-night cycles, and the custom building aspect. So there are many technical similarities, but they do not define the game. The 2D platforming and combat-focused gameplay does. Terraria is multiplayer randomized Castlevania with mining instead of a story. As well as grinding enemies for loot, you now grind stones. Mining has bestowed on Terraria an additional and interesting method of obtaining loot and encouraging exploration, and the difficulty curve organically fosters the need to upgrade said loot. It's a delicious cycle that taps into the ultra-obsessive part of my brain that had me imprisoned by Diablo 2 for a few years. And this was after a rocky start. The default tutorial guide NPC and I spawned on a cliffside, and my guide soon got trapped in a pond with a jellyfish and died, and the tutorial along with him. I don't see much reason to whine about a limited tutorial if the game is intuitive, and Terraria is. Things fall into place even if it took me some time. I began in a large world though, which I'm not sure I advise for new players, because large is bloody huge, without any content that you can't find in a more manageable small world with much faster loading and travel times. Selecting large creates an exceedingly long and deep map, offering little hope of keeping tabs on where you are, given that there is no map screen. You can be organized and carry signposts around with you, but it's a lot to ask a player to give up an inventory slot that could be used for potential loot. There's also no penalty for death except dropping the money you have on hand, so if you get hopelessly lost you can always kill yourself and be sent back to your spawn point. That 25-second drop represented half the depth of my large starting map, which constitutes about 1/8 of its length. Despite often getting lost, I'd love this map size if there were more things to put in it, and that is my problem. As delicious as the initial loot explore difficulty cycle was, it ended, and quite quickly. I have descended into the deepest underworld, crafted the best items, found the floating islands, flooded one of my worlds. I'm flooding stuff. And thoroughly looted the dungeon, which I also flooded. Water moving. I'm flooding stuff. Flooding! But what now, apart from grinding for the rare item Sunfury? I could try the one death only hardcore mode, maybe eventually. I could build? Well, I've established that I think Minecraft is better at that and that I don't want to do it anyway. I like small, cozy, efficient settlements. The pointlessness sets in after the single-player pacing stumbles on a strange note that marks the death of its momentum. Skeletron is the game's most powerful challenge. Once overcome, then you get access to some of the most exotic items in the game. For what purpose? There are no more threats to vanquish. The game needs to prolong the sense of urgency in acquiring new loot by always having a big boss that the player can fixate on as a goal. And once that big bad is a bloodied pulp, then another one should become accessible, even if it's just a tougher reskin of previous bosses. Of course, it would help if there was more loot to acquire, but that runs out quickly too. You've randomized everything else, really logic, why not randomize item stats? Perhaps some monster stats? Why not introduce experience points gained through monster slaying? Why not vastly increase maximum damage, health, mana, and armor, to allow for additional layers of difficulty curve and more terrain and ore types? And please bring in more big bad bosses, the eternal carrot on a stick for all obsessive loot collecting game players. It's not a bad sign if the only sincere problem I have with the game is that its single player largely ends after 20 hours. I just hope that it won't skimp on the dungeon grinding bits in future patches in order to compete with Minecraft as a building creation game, because it won't win. Hopefully Relogic will admit the game's strengths and work on adding variety and depth to the combat and loot collecting experience. If it does everything I listed, then I think that
this is the dawning of the age of Terraria. Age of Terraria. 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 You can dig a lot of stuff and put the stuff into lines. Put all the lines together to make a vague impression of a house for you and some other twice. And stuff. Or you can kill something. Kill something.
kill something. I award Terraria a pair of bucket wheel excavators, and the wondrous magic of my melodious voice.